Whether you're getting your 40th reptile or your very first one, there is a list, a checklist of things you must do and cannot skip if you want to give your animal the very best life and set yourself up for success. So let's just get right to it. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles, stick around. A quick thank you to CuriosityStream for sponsoring today's video. Let's get right into it. When you bring home a reptile, there are certain things that need to be waiting for that reptile when you get home. There are certain things you need to look for. There are certain things you need to know. How do you handle the animal? How long do you wait? How long before you feed it? Certain things like that. So let's just break it down and go over it. Everything we go over at the beginning works for your first reptile or however many reptiles that you have if you already have them. But if you already have reptiles and this isn't your first reptile, stay tuned to closer to the end because there is a very important thing that is different if you already have animals at your house. Something very important and often overlooked, be ready today and tomorrow. So what I mean is the very basics. Have the setup ready. Don't go to a reptile expo, reptile shop, wherever, and not have a place to put that animal when you get home. The setup needs to be ready. Even if it's a temporary setup that would work, you have to have something. You can't just be run and gun, firing all willy-nilly. Now that's obvious, have your setup, but what about food? Do you have food ready for this animal? Or do you have the funds and the means to go get that food? And that goes for supplies too. If you get a bearded dragon, you need a new UVB bulb, likely every 6 months or 8 or 12 or whatever the recommendation of the manufacturer is, but you're gonna need to plan ahead for that. And UVB bulbs are not cheap. To feed the animal is, well, kind of cheap, but still costs money. So if you don't have a constant influx of cash coming in, if you don't have an income, you don't get a reptile because you need income in order to take care of that reptile. Or if you're someone who has their parents taking care of them financially still, make sure they know the animal's gonna cost this much. Put it into a spreadsheet. Google Sheets is free. And even if you have the money, do you have the means to go to the reptile store once a week, once every 2 weeks, a month, however long, to feed that animal? For example, if you have an animal that must eat live prey, something like a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko, do you have the means to either take care of the insects or when you need new insects, get to a reptile store and or have someone deliver them to you in order to make that happen, in order to feed your reptile? So what I'm saying is it's not just all about today you bring home your reptile, yada yada. Do you have the means and the foresight to take care of that animal moving forward for a long extended period of time? Because these things, a lot of them, live forever. All right, so let's skip to the more commonly asked questions. Where do I buy a reptile? I get asked this question so many times. And it's actually a really great question. Where do you buy a reptile? Well, you can buy them at reptile expos, you can buy them at reptile shops, you can buy them from reputable breeders, you can buy them on Morph Market, for example, which generally would be a reputable breeder. I don't recommend going to like a PetSmart or Petco because chances are, if you go to a PetSmart, let's say, the lady with the blue shirt might be a 16-year-old kid who... Really? What I'm saying is the person who's behind the counter, the person who is the expert, might not be an expert. The amount of times I've gone into a PetSmart or something like that and the person didn't really know what they were talking about. Hey, a bearded dragon, what's the temperature need to be? And they look in the enclosure, which is like 75 degrees, and say, oh, it's 75. It's not their fault. They're not trained properly. Now, with that said, there's plenty of people who actually know what they're talking about. What I'm saying is you're gonna have a way better chance of getting someone who knows what they're doing and getting a much healthier animal if you go through a better source, like a reputable breeder, or somewhere where reputable breeders like to sell their animals through, like a reptile shop. Because the qualifications for a reptile shop are a little bit more than, hey, do you have an allergy to cats and dogs? Nope. All right, get the heck in there. There is some training involved for any reputable shop. Say reputable one more time, I dare you. Personally, I think it's easier, especially if you live in the US. Oh man, you have no idea how lucky you have it and compared to other countries like Canada here, where you can just ship all willy-nilly all over the country. For now. I hope it continues, but there's a video right here that's very important about why you might not be able to ship reptiles all willy-nilly anymore going forward. Anyway, as it stands, if you want a I don't know, ball python. There's a million different ball python breeders, not a million, but tons, right? And you can just go onto Morph Market and look, and you can ask forums and groups and Discord channels like mine, the Reptile Room. It's 4,000 members strong. If you go into a room like that, and there's lots of people there to help you out, you can ask questions, but you could go to the nerd Discord, or you can go to a Facebook group. Be careful. Sometimes people get upset in those. Or you can go on a forum or Reddit or whatever, and you can ask questions. Hey, XYZ Reptiles. I think that's actually a real reptile place. So, Joe Blows Exotics. That is...
Carol Baskin, and Carol Baskin.
Are they good? Do you have experience? You can read reviews and Google reviews too. Just before we move on, special thanks to CuriosityStream for sponsoring today's video. If I'm looking for a no-nonsense, straight to the point, facts only type of documentary or TV show, something to learn to satisfy my curiosity, I watch CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream showcases true storytelling with all the facts. It doesn't punch things up to be more interesting. What you see is what you get, and that's what I love about CuriosityStream. And if you love to watch documentaries, there is no better place. If you want to watch about science, nature, technology, whatever, or amalgamate the two, I still think Doug to the Rescue is one of the coolest shows. It's on CuriosityStream. Basically, a guy throws a drone up in the air and goes and finds animals that were in natural disasters and saves them. I love drones and I love animals. It kind of works. Imagine like Netflix for nerds. That's what this is, and that's why I love it. Oh, and by the way, if you use code WWReptiles, the entire year is $14.99. $14.99 for an entire year of things that you could never watch an entire year. There is so many things for $14.99. Thank you, CuriosityStream, for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to the list. So now you know where to get them. What do you look for? Now, in an animal from a reputable breeder, I'll say it again, if they're truly reputable, you're not gonna have issues. They're gonna have clear eyes, full hearts, no bubbling at the mouth, things like that. So basically, especially with snakes, ball pythons is a great example. If they've got bubbling around their mouth, do not buy the animal. That is likely a respiratory infection. If they've got eye caps stuck on their eyes, the person who's selling it should know that, which means how well are they taking care of their animals. If they've got black specks underneath their scales, that's called mites. You don't want that. And beyond the actual animal, when you're expecting, like just, is it energetic or not so much energetic, but is it not lethargic? Things like that. There are telltale things. And not only that, but look for things at the breeder. Are they keeping logs of feeding and sheds and things like that? And this isn't a telltale thing if they're not. Generally, feeding is something that they would. They need to know the age of the animal and if it's eating, if it's a baby for sure. Just, you'll get a good feel when you're talking to the seller if they are someone you should be buying from or not. Another really overlooked thing, how to transport your animal back to your house. Well, this is pretty easy if you live in a place like Southern Florida where it's just nice all the time. If you live in the frozen landscape that I live in, this ridiculous, why do people live here? If you live in a place like this, make sure that you have some way to keep it warm. A heat pack. Another great way is a hot water bottle wrapped in a cloth inside of a cooler. So you put the animal in its container and then you put the water bottle that's warm with a towel wrapped around it on the other side of the cooler, close the cooler, and that way it's keeping it warm. Generally, your car would be heated in that scenario as well, but just, I mean, from the door to the, or have someone bring the car around. Just, this is really common sense stuff, but I do get asked a lot, so I wanted to touch on it. What I don't recommend is taking your very young baby colubrid out of the enclosure and then it darts around your car and you never find it again, because that can happen. People can't, literally every week, I have someone, hey, my animal got loose in my car. How do I find it? Don't take it out in your car. And here's a hot button topic, something that people get upset with my answer. How long do I wait to feed, or how long do I wait to handle the animal? It doesn't matter. People will take the animal out at the expo to handle it, to look at it. So when you bring it home, put it in its enclosure, if you want to handle it that same day in a few hours, go for it. Now, there might be something to be said about giving it a few days to acclimate, But also, in my experience, there's something to be said of you're here, you're in this new environment, and what happens in this new environment is you get handled. And this is a great way, in my opinion, to socialize animals. Now, there will be angry comments. There will be people who disagree, and maybe they're right. But at the end of the day, we can't ask the animal, hey, what do you want to do? And I've seen no ill effects in my almost 15 years of keeping animals of bringing them home and handling them immediately or nearly immediately. The thing I'm trying to dismiss here is that, oh, you have to wait 14 days. Really? Is there a calendar inside the snake's head? Oh, it's 13 days, I'm gonna stress out and die. Like, that's not a real thing. If you wanna give it a couple days to acclimate, that's fine, but this whole, give it a week, give it 10 days, give it 14 days, 37 minutes, unless it's on the summer solstice, and then you gotta, like, all this is nothing, it's silliness. Now, how long before you feed is different, because when an animal is stressed, or if you feed them and then you move them, they could regurgitate. This is with snakes. So I do think there is something here. For example, if I feed my snakes, I don't touch them for the next day or so. Sometimes 2 days if it's a bigger meal. So personally, I've found that if you try to feed an animal immediately once bringing it home, a lot of the times they don't eat just because they're stressed from the move and things like that. I don't think there's really a harm in offering. I just think that a lot of the times they're just not gonna eat because they've gone through this stressful journey, but I would just give it a few days, depending on the species. Obviously, this is totally dependent on the species. Obviously, a big Burmese python can go a lot longer than a tiny little dart frog to eat, you know what I mean? Yes, I know dart frogs are amphibians, not reptiles. Let's move on. Okay, last point, quarantine. This is if you have an animal already, or if you have several animals already. I get this question. If I don't have animals already, do I need to quarantine my animal? Well, no, because, well, you're quarantining it no matter what, because quarantine just means you take it in an environment that is away from the environment where all of your other animals are. Now, there's several reasons that you'd want to do this. You don't want the animal that you just brought home that might be sick to infect your other animals. That is basically, in a nutshell, why we do this. Now, the number one thing, in my opinion, that you see all the time is the missing system going off in my videos as I'm trying to record. Anyway, the number one thing, or the most common thing, I think, is mites. These are these tiny little, like, imagine a tick, but microscopic. They kind of go underneath the scales of a snake. They suck the blood. And they're brutal to get rid of, and they are super contagious. So if these things get on one of your snakes, or you bring home a snake with them, and you put it next to another snake, your whole collection is going to be infested with mites. I've been there. I've done that. It is a giant pain. There's a video right here, whatever corner it comes up in. There's a video that I made to help you out. It is the best way, in my opinion, to get rid of them. But the idea is to not have mites in your whole collection in the first place. Some people ask, Adam, how did you go bald? You seem a little bit young to have it. I got mites one time and ripped all of my hair out. Okay, that's not totally true, but you'll rip your hair out. It's gonna be stressful, I promise. It is just easier to quarantine your animals. There's a whole video right here on how to do it exactly. Do not take your animal that you just bought and put it in the rack with all your other animals. I promise you, one day, it's gonna bite you in the behind, and you don't want that day to happen today. Don't do that. Okay, that's it. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit like and subscribe if you do that sort of thing. I appreciate it. It does actually help the algorithm quite a bit. A special thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys are freaking amazing. Absolutely, you guys get extra content. You know what I picked up at the Reptile Expo, I guess yesterday if today's Monday. You guys know about all sorts of extra things and discounts on the merch and all sorts of extra stuff. And for as little as $1 a month, you can be a Patreon supporter too. And that's it. Because we do videos twice a week, that means I'll see you on Thursday.